All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a panel on the first year academic experience. My name is Katie Burns. I am the director of our Baldwin Center for Learning and Teaching. And the way this session is set up is I have a few prepared questions for our panelists. They'll each take a turn to answer them. And then we'll open the floor to questions from all of you. And so that's why the microphones are down here. So I'm going to begin by asking each of them to introduce themselves, to say their name, the pronouns they prefer, 3 facts, and or basically what they do here at Bowdoin. So we will start here with Nick.
My name is Nick Boyce. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I live in Appleton Hall this year. And 3 things that my pronouns are he, him, his. And 3 things that I do at Bowdoin. Let's see. I recently started taking Japanese, which I like a lot. I also work 2 jobs on campus, both of them coincidentally in Moulton Union. And I am a part of Tea Club.
Maybe say what that is.
Oh, yes, okay. Tea Club meets every Friday from 7 to 8:30, and we just drink a bunch of different teas and talk and relax. Yeah, it's really low-key, really chill, and it's good for just kind of getting to unwind at the end of the week and, make a lot of good friends and just have a nice casual space to be in.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm from the Bay Area, California. I use she, her, hers. I'm a first year. I live in Main Hall. Some things I'm involved in on campus are I'm in the Bowdoin Modern Dance Collective, which is one of our student dance groups. I'm involved with the Stowe Writers Collective, which is like a non-academic kind of free open writing space that does like weekly workshops. I work in the dish room at Moulton, and I'm also an out peer, which means I'm a queer person at Bowdoin who has received training to support like questioning people on campus or other queer people who might be having trouble like coming out and stuff like that.
Hi, I'm Willie Lempert. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Anthropology and Sociology. And I'm from Ohio, but I've lived in Colorado for most of the last decade. And I go by he, him, his. And a few things about me. I make a lot of films with Aboriginal Australians. And I play drums. And I've become very interested in virtual reality and bringing a lot of those capabilities to campus.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Excited to be here. Jet lagged. Awake after lunchtime? Yeah. I'm so proud of you all. Okay. So, my name is Jessica Perez. Thank you for the applause. I'll wait if anybody else wants to, Nice. Good crowd today. All right. So my name is Jessica Perez. I use she, her, and hers, and I am the director of Thrive, which is a new initiative on Bowdoin campus designed to ensure that first-generation of college students, low-income students, and students of color thrive here at Bowdoin. First and most importantly, I love giraffes. So good thing to remember about me. I am originally from California. Woo! Yes! It's good. Emma and I will hold down the fort. We gotcha. I don't get to join the student clubs, which is really a bummer because every time I hear about one, they sound so cool. But for fun, I like to dance.
Thank you. So I'll say a little bit about myself and then move on to the other questions. So in our Center for Learning and Teaching, some of the things that we do, we meet individually with students as professional staff. We also train students to serve as peer mentors, writing assistants, Q tutors, and language tutors as well. So we do a lot with students around learning, and we also work with faculty around teaching. This is my 7th year at Bowdoin, but the 2nd in this role. And One of the facts that I like to share with students is that I failed my first test in college as a first year at Davidson. I thought it was fine to go out to an outdoor movie the night before my first astronomy test. I mean, I did fine in high school. I knew how to study. I did not know how to study. So I got very lucky that I had an awesome roommate who did know how to study, and she was from Massachusetts. I'm still thankful, and we're still good friends. So there are things that happen in college that you've done so many great things to get you here, and sometimes things get really challenging in lots of ways that you would not expect. But that's a great opportunity. And then the last fact I'll share is that Bowdoin is actually founded on land that once belonged to the Wabanaki, which is a tribe in Maine. And so I think it's important to sort of acknowledge the people that were here way before us. And then for all of you, the people that will be here after us. Who knows who that might be? So here's our next question for our panel. We'll start, Emma, with you. So what from your experience as a first year and or working with first years are two challenges that first years face at Bowdoin?
I think that one of the biggest challenges for me in terms of my academic transition to college was time management, because you go from being in high school where you have very structured scheduled activities from like 8:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. A lot of you were probably involved in extracurriculars after school, so that's just like more scheduled time. And it's like at college, there's a lot less of that. You're only taking 4 classes. They definitely do not fill up your day, so there's a lot more free time. And I think deciding, trying to find the balance of when's a good time to study, when's a good time to relax, when do I eat my meals, when do I do my laundry, all of that was something that was a challenge, an adjustment. I think another adjustment for me, I'm not sure if this is exactly a challenge, but in terms of homework, so I'm interested in the humanities and maybe anthropology, sociology, and so the kind of homework that I was doing was a lot different than in high school. It was a lot more reading based and heavy reading based and being able to do a lot of close reading. So, yeah.
Thanks. We'll move to Willie.
So I thought a lot about this question. The main challenge, as I see it, is all of you are used to being exceptional, being just the best, performing the highest in so many ways, at so many levels. And you take a lot of exceptional people, put them in one place, and just by the math alone, half the people are in the bottom of the class. And I think there's a psychological adjustment that has to happen where not everyone who's used to being exceptional their whole life will be exceptional here. And to sort of wrap your mind around that and not get stuck on it. And along the same lines, the other thing is, to get here is so hard. And you've been working so hard and probably filling up all of your schedule with so many different activities. I think it can be hard to sort of readjust when you get to Bowdoin and make some space in your life, not fill up all of your time with extracurricular activities, and just sort of downshift a little bit so that you create free time, unstructured time to let things happen and not sort of optimize your schedule and resume. And it's really hard because you're so good at that. And so I think making the adjustment into college along those lines it's something worth thinking about, and not to be on autopilot about those things.
So I would second what you've heard, and I would add a couple things that are related to each other and related to what you've heard. The first being that you have spent a lot of time thinking about what you want and preparing yourself to come to college and thinking about what kind of major and career you might want to have. And you get here, and then you have some new experiences, right? You'll take different classes, you'll meet new people, you'll be exposed to disciplines or careers that you may not have ever even known about. And then you might get 6 months into college or a year into college and be wrestling with, hey, I took this religious studies class and I really like it. But I told everybody back at home, and I've told my parents, and my sort of description of myself has always been that I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or whatever it is. And so it can be hard to figure out when it's okay to let go of what your idea was coming in here and make a change. But the reality is that it's okay to do that. And many students struggle with thinking that it's not. Like, I said I was going to do this, and so I have to stick with it. But you have gained new information in your time here, and that should inform what you want to do. And so it's totally okay to do that. In fact, perhaps it's even better because your understanding of what a particular major is before you get to high school is, before you get to college is very limited, right? So you make the best decisions with the information that you have, but I would encourage you all, if you come here or wherever you go, to really be open-minded, to pursue something different, and to know that if you choose to do that, it's okay. No one's gonna think that that's a bad thing. The second is a little bit along those lines, which is that college is supposed to be really hard. And sometimes we're so used to being really successful that that it's hard to process that. But if you already knew everything that there was to learn, then you wouldn't need to be here, right? In fact, if you're taking classes and they're all really easy, you're not actually getting very much out of the experience here. And so I would encourage everyone to try to come in with the idea that things are going to be hard, but that's okay. And you might not get it perfectly from the day one or the first semester, but that's also part of the process. And if everything you're doing is actually really easy, you're probably not doing it right.
I would say that a lot of the challenges are going to kind of depend on the experiences that you've had in high school and the kind of person that you are as a result of those experiences. Because what I noticed about Bowdoin almost immediately, and I think that this is one of the things that's really going to hold true, is that you're going to notice that there are a lot of different people. And so everybody's going to be in a very different place, regardless of if you got the best education in the world. There might just be a perspective that you never thought about, or that you had heard about, but you never really, gave it much weight, or an educational method that you just had never used. And getting to Bowdoin and finding out how many different places there were to be at for everybody. I know this sounds kind of vague, so I guess for an example, in my first year seminar, we had to write a lot of essays and do a lot of analysis about movies. It was called Japanese animation. And what made it difficult was that it was a really different type of thinking than I was used to, because we were focusing a lot more on animation and film and how you use the medium to create sort of a certain feeling that can't be articulated in the same way in literature. And so for some of my friends who had film classes before and were really into it, they'd be able to say, yeah, like I know, this sort of scene composition, I'm able to tell you like this shot, and I'm just like, whoa, a bunch of terms, I have no idea, yeah, sure, red means angry, blue means, sad, I'll accept it, I'll take it. But just kind of accepting that you're gonna be in a very different place relative to literally everyone, and having the confidence to know that you don't need to stack up to anyone. Your GPA is not going to be determined by anyone else's. It's yours. So, your classes, your extracurriculars, those are things that belong to you. And so it makes life a lot easier when you trust yourself to know that the goal that you should be working towards is getting better than yourself rather than, trying to look at somebody else and be like, oh, well, they had a bunch of training in this specific thing and, I have no idea about that, so I have to beat them rather than, this person knows a lot. Maybe I could talk to them and, help improve myself so that I can, get a better understanding of what I want to do, how to think in this new way, because it makes it a lot easier. And everybody here is super friendly, so it's really easy to do that and just cooperate with each other.
Thank you, Nick. That's pretty much exactly what I was going to say, and you gave much more beautiful examples than I would. But I think one of the big challenges is there's this shift that happens from high school to college, that it often is very competitive in high schools in lots of different ways. And the culture here at Bowdoin is very cooperative, which is what you were just talking about. And so recognizing, like, okay, so how do I fit into that world? How do I contribute my gifts, my strengths, and then also be willing to learn from other people who know more or have done more in particular areas? And I feel like that happens all over the place, but it does take a little shift in that mentality, I think, to be open to that different kind of culture educationally. The other thing I was going to say is that for a lot of students, they have done so well, right? All of you have done so well to get here, that in some ways asking for help can be a sign of weakness. And yet, in reality, it's actually a sign of wisdom to know when someone else knows more and you want to tap into what they know or can do. So I think there is this transition that needs to happen, that the sooner you can go and use your resources, the more it benefits you in the long run. So you don't need to be afraid that, oh, it's not till I fail that I can go get help. It's like, no, I find this challenging. I'm going to go find somebody who can help me do this, can teach me a new strategy, can show me a different way. So those are the two things I would add. So thank you, everyone. So Willie, we'll start the next question with you. So what opportunities exist at Bowdoin that help first years to survive the academic transition to college and thrive?
There are so many official programs, and including Thrive. So you'll learn all about those, and those are listed, on websites, and other folks will talk to you about those. But I thought I might mention the fact that there's a lot of things that are implicit as well, that are non-official, that exist around these things. And a lot of it has to do with just the student-faculty relationships. Faculty are advisors, they're trained, they're very invested. Office hours are welcoming spaces that professors want students to go into. And so many students, junior, senior year, they start going to office hours then, and you hear all the time that people regret that they didn't start right away. I think that's where a lot of this stuff happens. There's a lot of safety nets and ways of making sure that no one falls between the cracks at Bowdoin in official ways. But I think a lot of this work happens in office hours and after class and with faculty. And so I would just really encourage you all to go to office hours and connect with the faculty. And the more you're nervous about going to office hours, probably the more you should go. There's that direct relationship. So a lot of official programs you'll hear about, but a lot of it's the student-faculty relationships. And faculty take those really seriously and want everyone to do well.
So I'll share a couple examples from Thrive. So as I said, Thrive is an initiative designed to ensure that students of color, first generation of college students, and low-income students thrive. A lot of that is rooted in the academic experience, right? If you don't feel like you're doing well academically, you're not thriving on this campus. And so one of the things that we do is, so there's multiple programs that fall under Thrive, but if you're in any of those programs, then you're part of the Thrive community. And we do things together as a community to learn about what's going to help you be successful and to be together while we do that. So we do events where, for example, we did a partnership with the library where at the beginning of the semester, we learned about all the ways you can get resources through the library for your classes for free instead of having to buy them. Or we did something, for example, at the end of the first semester where we brought together all the first years and their peer mentors and advisors and talked and reflected about their experience and talked about resources that they used during that first semester, and also just celebrated the accomplishment of completing the first semester of college. So we try to create community in the process of giving people the academic support they need. Another thing that one of the Thrive program does, I'll use, for example, the Bowdoin Science Experience program. So that program takes place during the orientation trips that all students go on. And this is a program geared at students who are underrepresented in STEM. And they have the opportunity to stay on campus during that week. They meet a bunch of upperclassmen with similar identities who are also in STEM so that they can have good resources that way. They get connected to professors. They get to visit labs so that they can learn how labs work in college and get a taste of the different disciplines. And that all happens before classes start. And so that's a great opportunity too to get a sense of what the academic experience is going to be like in the sciences, particularly for students who are coming from high schools where you might not have gotten a super rigorous science experience.
Everything I'm about to say is a message to you, but also kind of a reminder to myself, especially with office hours. Go to office hours, please. Do it. You can do it. Really. It's definitely a challenge to get over that hurdle, to ask yourself to be vulnerable and say, I am struggling, or I don't understand. I need help with this. And that is not something that just magically goes away. That is something that I'm still dealing with as I have exams coming very, very, very soon. And I think that it's really important to know that you're surrounded by all these people that can help you. Your professors, your friends, your proctors, people in different grades that have taken the classes before especially will, tell you, oh, this professor tends to have this type of teaching style, and, I think you should probably study this way or go to office hours, make a study group. And there's a lot of information that can feel kind of overwhelming. Sometimes it can kind of feel like you have so many resources that you don't know what to do or where to go, but there's always the CLT, and I'm a part of BASE, which is underneath the Thrive umbrella, and so I have a BASE mentor that I meet with every week, and then I also meet with my pre-major advisor every week, and so that's really helpful because I get the opportunity to speak with people who know more about the campus resources than I do and can manage it a little bit better and can guide me. And so if I come to them with a problem and say, I really, for example, I have this econ professor that is notorious for being really rigorous, and so I don't know what to do. And my pre-major advisor went out and said, okay, here's how, we should tackle this. Here's the resources that you can have, and if there's anything more, you can tell me. And I think that having somebody to talk to makes life so much easier because you're not bottled up and you're not out to sea all by yourself. You've got a lot of people supporting you. And I think that there's so many different things. I wanna list them as many as I can. But CLT, Thrive, friends, professors, proctors, the internet also. Yeah. It sounds kind of silly, obvious, but yes, there's like a lot of information. So just connect with people, and you'll find more often than not that people will be willing to help you, and you'll be able to get the stuff that you need to help you succeed.
Yeah, I would echo what Nick said about the Center for Learning and Teaching. I think it's a really great space at Bowdoin because you can get peer-to-peer mentoring, so it's like a little bit less intimidating than having someone that seems like they know everything. It's at least someone who is around your age. For example, I was in a first-year seminar with Professor Lempert, and we were matched, each of us was individually matched with writing assistants at the Center for Learning and Teaching, and so we got individual feedback on all of our papers for that seminar, and we had meetings every time to go over ideas and syntax, anything you might need help with. And then another resource that I really appreciate is the library. So the library, they have librarians assigned to like each department, and they can help you with research. You can just look up who your assigned librarian is for like whatever class you might be needing help with research, and you can email them, set up a meeting. They also have like a research help section that there's someone there pretty regularly who you can go and like be, hey, I have this project, I don't know where to start, and they can like point you in the direction of like maybe start looking on this online resource, etc.
Thank you. That is actually the one I was going to add, is the librarians. I think too often students don't take advantage of them till junior or senior year, and they are such an amazing resource to help you figure out how to do research much more efficiently than you know how to do. Okay, so our next question is just for the students. Nick, you want to take first stab at it? Okay. So what do you wish you would have known about the academic experience at Bowdoin prior to starting your first semester here?
Okay. I would say that there are a lot of pleasant surprises. I guess that I wish that I had known that I was allowed to think much more freely. It sounds kind of weird, but there are just so many different options, and it can feel kind of overwhelming sometimes. And I think that taking a moment to kind of check in with yourself and think about the kind of things that are really interesting to you, no matter how, insane or crazy. Like if you want to take a class in that and you're just like, oh, I would never take a class. Like I never would have imagined that in my first semester at college I would have been taking a course about Japanese animation. Like anime? Like really? But I did it. It really was a thing. Harder than it sounds, but and I remember looking at the course lists when I visited Bowdoin, and I was looking at a bunch of the names, and I was like, what is this class? Like, is that even real? Because in high school, you have so many, you have a lot of really structured classes that you just kind of take sequentially. And the closest thing I got to feeling like I had a lot of choices were in my senior year with electives and sort of APs, kind of. But even then, it's kind of just like you're taking the next step, like you did Latin 1, 2, 3, now you're taking AP Latin. But at Bowdoin, there's so many different classes that you can take in things that you never would have thought of. And it's a lot at first. It's a great thing, but I also think that it kind of comes as a shock to the system to have all these different options, because they seem kind of abstract at first and you don't know what to do with it. And so I think that what would have helped me a lot in trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and even still now as we prepare for courses for next year, is just checking in and making sure that, put down all the things that you want to do. Put down all the things that you feel like you need to do. Be willing to have that list be flexible, and give yourself the opportunity to explore, because there are a lot of things to explore that'll give you a really good academic experience while also being really interesting and really fun that you just never would have gotten the chance to have before.
So kind of building off what Nick said about like all the courses at Bowdoin sounding exciting and fascinating and like something you want to try, I wish that I had known going in the importance of talking to professors about their courses, and the importance of talking to like upperclassmen who have taken certain courses about what that experience is like, because I remember like during orientation week there's an academic fair where all the departments are like have tables in the gym, and it's kind of overwhelming, and I talked to like one professor and then I was so overwhelmed that I left. And I wish that I had known how approachable Bowdoin professors are and how excited they are to talk to you about their courses that they're offering, because talking to a professor will definitely give you a much better idea of what the course is going to be like and whether it's something you're actually interested in. And also, upperclassmen are a great resource because they can tell you like which professors are like really engaging. And also, to echo kind of what's already been said, I think what really makes a course at Bowdoin exceptional is when you have that strong connection with a professor. And so going into office hours is like so important because it allows you to like build those connections. And yeah, again, like talking to upperclassmen about which professors are like courses they've taken and with who and like how they would recommend going about the academic experience.
Thank you. And just to give sort of some background information, some of you probably may already know this, but students typically take 4 courses a semester at Bowdoin. Each course only counts as 1 credit, and the courses meet a minimum in class for 3 hours. So if you have 0 labs or 0 sort of extra part of a courses, you're only in class for 12 hours a week. The typical expectation is that for every hour you're in class, you're spending 2 to 3 hours outside of class on coursework. So just to give you a sense of sort of time frame, it's for most people very different from what they experienced before, and so it does take some adjustment to think about, okay, so how do I manage this? What does this look like? I will say it's very rare for students to only have 12 hours of class a semester. Most students are in a lab or in a theater class or an art class that meets for more than just the usual 3 hours of class. Okay, so we're going to move to our last prepared question. We'll start with Jessica and come down this way to mix it up a little bit. So the last question is, describe a meaningful, positive academic experience you have had, or a student has told you about, at Bowdoin that is not in any college brochure or marketing material.
So I came to a lecture in this room a few months ago, and it was for an award that a professor had received. And it's a professor who's involved in Thrive, and so I wanted to come here and support him. And it wasn't part of a class or any sort of requirement that students had to attend. And so I came in, and there's a bunch of students, and I think that's like awesome. If you're willing to go to a lecture on top of the lectures you already have to go to. And I saw a student who I knew, and I said, "Oh, you know, what brings you here?" And he said to me, "I just love chemistry." And I could like have eaten that up all day. Like, to see the genuine intellectual engagement across the student body is really great, and I think is really special about being on a college campus. But the other thing he said to me was that this professor had been his advocate and supporter the whole time that he'd been in college, and that he wanted to be there to support his professor who'd been supporting him. And I would say that the relationships that students have with faculty that go beyond just sort of the academic experience are really powerful here, and that many faculty invite their students to their homes, or they, you know, play with this, you know, faculty members' dogs or kids, and it seems like a really genuine, supportive, intellectual community and community that's invested in you as a person, and I think that's really special.
Again, to harp on this, I think a lot of these things happen in office hours. I can think of dozens of examples. So I'd really encourage you to go to office hours. But there's a lot of events, and a lot of things happen in this sort of space between the social and academic world. And at a lot of universities, those are very divided realms. And at Bowdoin, they do a good job of finding the intersections between them. So one example is they have this event periodically called Dinner with Six Strangers. And you go to one of the social houses, and there's 6 people who don't know each other at a table, and you just talk. So I was sat with 5 students who I'd never met before, and we ended up having this long conversation about the dining halls and what it means to go to the different dining halls and where people sit, and all of the micropolitics of food on campus. And it was really, I learned a lot. I think I probably learned more than they did. But there's a lot of those moments that are structured into the curriculum that aren't really in the marketing materials. They're just embedded throughout the college, that are just these great social spaces to engage about, but also beyond the coursework in those settings. Yeah.
So I kind of have 2. The first one is more general. So I really, really love that at Bowdoin I can have, like Professor Lempert was saying, the academic and like social divide is kind of ambiguous, and I can have conversations every day with my friends about their intellectual passions, and I love hearing about what my friends are learning about in their classes and the exciting projects they're working on, and then also sharing things in my classes that are exciting with me. And I really love that both like it feels so two-sided in that we're both like so invested in each other's learning and excited by each other's learning. And then the second thing I will say, this one is kind of an ongoing positive academic experience. So I'm a dancer. I did competitive ballroom dancing for all of high school, which was a very structured form of dance. And coming into Bowdoin, I knew I wanted to experiment with modern and learn a lot more about that. So I took advanced modern dance last semester, and it was like the most incredible class I've taken at Bowdoin. I think it was like so liberating, and the professor was amazing. And this semester I'm in a dance seminar with Professor Adonna Jones, and so this class is basically like dance ethnography. So we are studying like how movement communicates certain things about social structures and identity. But one thing I did really miss this semester was being in like a performance-based class, because last semester it was like 2 hours straight, twice a week of just dancing, and we like put together a show for the department show. And so I was talking to Professor Jones about this, and she was immediately very willing. Because I was interested in like creating a piece of my own, and she was just immediately offered herself to be an advisor to me, to help me choreograph something or to put together a piece for the show. And so we're doing that, and we have been working on it all semester. And so that was just really incredible for me to have a professor who was just so open to supporting my academic and artistic interests, and was so willing to like give her time, because professors here are busy, but she was like, okay, well, let's do rehearsal twice a week, 2 hours, 2-hour rehearsals twice a week. And so I feel so grateful for that, and I think that's it kind of exemplifies the kind of relationships with professors that you can have at Bowdoin, where like your peers, they are so invested in your own academic growth and really want to see you grow. Yeah.
It's actually kind of hard to pick. It sounds kind of cheesy, but I've been spending this whole time trying to pick one, which is a nice thing. It's a nice choice to have. I'm gonna quickly echo the fact that a lot of them are connected to just getting excited over things with your friends about your classes and like stuff they're doing. A lot of my friends in labs will like come to me and be like, look at this thing I just found, isn't it crazy? Oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, awesome. And you know, like even if I don't understand it, I'll like sit there and listen to them go on for like an hour. Uh, but professors are super supportive, and I guess I'll take two. I'll also do two. I'm cheating a little bit, but
Typical.
so one really positive academic experience was with my Latin professor from last semester. And so I have been taking Latin for a really long time. And so I was really scared about college level Latin, because I was like, oh my gosh, what if this whole time I've just been getting by, you know, like I actually suck at it and nobody's really let me know until this very moment I'm gonna get there and they're gonna be like, you're terrible, what are you doing here? And and it sounds crazy, but that was like my actual, you know, fear deep down. And so I would sit in class and we'd translate from our books, and we'd have like these long, you know, parts of poems to translate at home. And I'd come in and I'd like try not to look and kind of look and like be like, I'm not reading, I promise. And so I told my Latin professor about this, and she said to me, well, you know, how much time is it taking you to translate at home? And I'm like, it's taking a really long time. I really want to make sure that I'm bringing like my best, like my A game to class, because I'm not trying to, you know, look like a fool in front of everybody who's so invested and good. And she's like, okay, well, try not translating, like writing it down before class. Just read it, just translate it and come to class. And I go, what? You want me to not have like my entire translation in front of me? You just want me to go from, memory? And she's like, trust me, it'll work. And so I'm putting all this on her, all my faith. I'm like, if my grade goes down, that is on you. You knew what happened. You told me this was the method, and I'm trusting you here. And so I started doing that, and it actually worked out a lot better than I was anticipating. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like, all throughout my years of studying Latin, I had, written it down, come to class, had the translation, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I would still kind of have this feeling of nervousness because, I was in a class with, juniors and seniors. And one day we had a research project to do. We basically had to analyze a poem and make a thesis about it. And so I went to her office and she said, Nicholas. And I go, I'm like, yes. And then she goes, you're Latin. I need to talk to you about it. And I go, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the moment I get fired. It's it for me. And she goes, your Latin is just beautiful. And I go, really? Really? Do you mean that? She goes, yes. And she's like, she's telling me all these wonderful things about how proud of me she is. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, wow, thank you so much. And it just made me feel so great. And she sent this thing called a comment card. And I told my base mentor, I was like, oh, I got a comment card from my Latin professor. And he goes, oh man, I know it's tough, and typically those are kind of like, I think, if you're struggling, I want to help out, reach out. And I'm like, what? No, it was really good. What are you talking about? She was praising me. She's like, my Latin's awesome. Hopes to see me again. All good stuff. And he's like, really? Let me see that. And it was just really nice to know that she was so genuinely interested in making sure that I was feeling confident and okay, and just making sure that I was working hard to be able to do my best. And yeah, it really is a really positive experience that I have, and it stands out to me because she's also, I don't know if any of you are in AP Latin or have taken AP Latin, but she edited one of the books, Virgil Aeneid. Dr. Barbara Boyd, if you look on the back, her name, she did that. She didn't write the book, but she, made all the notes and stuff. So I had really high expectations for myself going into that class, and and so yeah, it was really great. And then the other really quick one that I want to share is that in my Japanese animation class, my professor would always encourage me to go to office hours, and I'd go, and she'd be like, how are you doing? That's how she'd open up, and I'd be like, I'm okay, like, yeah, I'm fine, like, trying not to be like, I've got a lot of work to do, you give me a lot of work to do, but I'm okay. And so she'd always, let me know, like, oh, if you need to talk about anything, like, I'm here, like, I want to make sure that you're having a positive experience here because, it's really important to me that emotional wellness is part of academic success. Like, you really can't push yourself to succeed on that level if you're not taking care of yourself on a core level. And so I'd always be just like, yeah, fine, And there was a week that I was having a lot of trouble, and I just went to her, and I was just like, she asked me how I was doing, and I was just like, I am so swamped. I'm so tired. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And she's just, we sit there talking, and she asked me what I'm gonna do for Thanksgiving, and I was going by a family friend for Thanksgiving, but the way I had worded it was that I wasn't going home for Thanksgiving. And she kind of, was like, oh my gosh, you're not going home for Thanksgiving, that's really sad. What do I do? And so she didn't let me know right away that that was what she was thinking, but she kind of picked up on it. And so afterwards, before Thanksgiving break, she sent me an email, and she said, hey, Nick, I know that I just recalled that you said you weren't going home for Thanksgiving, and so being that I want to make sure that you have a really good Thanksgiving, my door is really always open. We're welcome here for Thanksgiving, you know, because her husband also works at Bowdoin, and then I've met her kids through going to Japanese language table, which is a separate thing that I can talk about later if you ask me. But yeah, and so she was like, the door's open, and if you want to have Thanksgiving with us, we'd be happy to have you. And then I had to clarify that I was actually going somewhere for Thanksgiving, but it was really touching to know that that was something that could even happen, and that she was hoping and thinking about me to make sure that, you know, one student of hers wasn't going to be alone on Thanksgiving, and that really made my day. And I think that those are the kinds of connections that you make here. As cheesy and brochure-y as it sounds, I apologize. It really is, you know, like the core thing of what has made my experience here at Bowdoin so positive.
Thank you. So we have about 10 minutes for questions from all of you. If you're able to, we invite you to come down to these microphones in the front. If you are not able to get up, you have to crawl through too many people, we will bring the microphones around. The microphones just help so we can hear the question, everyone can hear. So questions can relate to anything about the first year academic experience. You can ask a particular panelist or a couple, or you can open it up in general to anyone. So we have about 10 minutes for questions, and what I advised the group yesterday is if a question comes into your mind 3 times, it's probably something you should ask out loud. So take courage. All right. Person coming up, so you're welcome to.
I'll give it a try. This is a question that was sparked by a comment that the Dean of Students made this morning. He said when he was a student, you went away to college. If you were lucky, you got a phone call home once a week or a letter once in a while. So today's teenagers are hyper-connected through social media. They're always chatting on their phones and so on and so forth with their friends. So my question is, to what extent does this act as an impediment to them integrating into a new environment when they come to college? Or is it actually a facilitator? Do you have any comments or any recommendations in that?
I'll let the students go first, and then, yeah.
So the first thing you do when you get to Bowdoin after move-in day is you are thrown into an orientation trip, which is a small group of about, I don't know, like 9-ish students led by 2 upperclassmen. And so you're either going on a community service trip through the McKean Center, or you are doing some sort of camping type thing with the Bowdoin Outing Club. And yeah, and the Bowdoin Science Experience. And what they tell you on these trips is leave your phones and lock your phones away. So the first experience you have at Bowdoin is like a no phone zone, basically for a week, almost, like half a week. So I think the people at Bowdoin are so warm, welcoming, thoughtful that the allure of like isolating yourself is almost non-existent, because you want to be integrating yourself into this community that you can see already is like so incredible. At least that was my experience.
I'll also echo the orientation trips as a really good space to get to know other people without technological distractions, I guess. Because you really are forced to be face-to-face, and you're doing a lot of different things. So I did a community service trip, and so that was really fun to just get to connect with everybody. And, you know, it was at first kind of jarring to go from like New York City to Brunswick, Maine, and then consequently have my phone taken away. But but it was a really great experience. And I think in terms of facilitating, I don't know if this has already been made, but usually there's an admitted, I think it should already be made, an admitted students page on Facebook that a lot of people will post to, and you know, it's cool to, like, you're not necessarily forced to like post anything, but you can look at everybody's things, and it's not a commitment. Like, you're not gonna comment on somebody's post and be bound to them for life. But it's also kind of cool to be able to be like, whoa, I remember your post, you know, like I like that thing too. I think that it's not too much of a, I think it is as much of a distractor as you will let it be in any part of your life.
Yeah.
I think academically or otherwise, you do have a lot more free time in college, i.e. not taken up by class. And so potentially that can be kind of dangerous if you know, get out of class and are like, I'm just gonna go on Netflix until Saturday. But ideally you won't do that. But yeah, I think that for the most part, the ways that technology is used can be helpful to create friendships and create connections, but I don't think that it's that significant of a negative thing.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about the Writing Center. So the people who go to it, are they typically freshmen? Are they typically English majors? Are they typically non-English majors? Who uses it?
Everyone. So really, your first semester fall here, everyone takes a first-year seminar, and so most of those are matched with a writing assistant. So you automatically get that assistance in that seminar. But people all the way through people working on their honors thesis also get writing partners. So it really is used by everyone at every level. And I would say it's probably, well, I was gonna say majority non-English, but that's just because that would be the majority, right, of people who are not English majors in some ways. So that's not really fair, but I would say it really cuts across all fields, all years.
Yeah, I would just add, I have a friend who's currently, so in order to be a writing assistant, you take a semester-long course called Teaching and Writing, where you learn about how to be a writing assistant. And so I know that he's been, so as part of their training, they actually do peer-to-peer advising, and I know that he's had an equal number of, like he's even looked at like lab reports, so it's not just like papers for humanities classes that the Writing Center can help you with, it's also across disciplines, because you're gonna you need to do writing for most disciplines at college.
Thank you. Other questions?
So I heard you talking about Thrive, and I was just curious, like, how could you get involved with it? Is it something like you have to apply for, or is it like something that's recommended to you? Like, how do you get involved with like the Thrive program here at Bowdoin?
So Thrive is made up of multiple different programs, and each one has its own way of getting participants. So there isn't one way. But many of them have a point at which they reach out to students and encourage them to apply, and then those students have an opportunity to apply. And those tend to be slanted toward the beginning of the year. There's one program, for example, in the last 2 weeks of winter break that is a science program, and it's for students who have identities underrepresented in STEM, who feel like they could benefit from working some more on their science skills before the next semester so that they can do even better. And so that's something that is just openly advertised that folks can apply to if they meet the criteria.
All right, we probably have time for one more question.
Hi, could you explain a little bit about the first year seminar and if it's intertwined at all with residential life?
Sure. Willie, do you want to talk a little bit?
Sure. The first year seminar is really great because it does a few things at once. One, it's to make sure that everyone has a relatively equal grounding in writing. So it's a lot about writing structure. It's a writing course, and it's writing focused. But the mechanism to get to that writing project, or that writing focus, is really interesting, compelling topics. And so, regarding it being connected to, broader social life on campus, one of the purposes of those courses is also to make sure, because sometimes you'll be taking intro courses your first semester, and those are the rare courses that are bigger at Bowdoin. It's also to guarantee that you have one very small class in which you know the names and faces of everyone in that class, to the level of intimacy that you be comfortable eating lunch with them or seeing them around campus. So it also does have that social function of making sure that you have those students on campus that you're really close to and having that class interaction with, and that you have at least one professor that you know well, who knows your name, that you've been in their office hours, and that you're connected to right off the bat.
So, and I'll just add this, so first year seminars are in disciplines all across the college. So faculty choose to offer a first year seminar. They're capped at 16 students, which is what helps with that sort of intimacy and getting to know people. But it is not connected to residential life necessarily in any way. It's really focused on, this might be your first course in this field or discipline, and you're gonna do a fair amount of writing in here. Those are sort of the main things, yeah. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I hope you've had a great experience today. The panelists will be up here for a few extra minutes, so you're welcome to come up, and please join me in thanking them for their insights.